Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Ref the District's Day After Reckoning, where we come live and give you our thoughts on the Washington Commanders the day after they play. And last week was exciting and it was fun and we were all joyous. And this week, there's going to be a lot of energy, though, today. I can tell that this one's going to be pretty feisty. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. Trev should be popping in at some point tonight. He had to hit the bar. That's how bad this loss was. He had to go to he's working Sky Bar tonight, so that's why Trev's not here with us. But make sure you pop down in Lexington, Virginia, and hit Trev in person. You can get his thoughts on the game anytime right there at Sky Bar. We're also sponsored by Pacers Running and soon to be another one, which I'll let you know when they give us the details. Stoner.
Yes, sir.
This was not the game we wanted it to be. We were fairly confident coming into the game.
Yep.
And I warned us. I said, nothing comes easy for Washington.
Yep.
And it was just an absolute disaster.
It was a disaster in the first half. My overall assessment, after having watched it like 4 times today, or parts of it at least 4 times today, quite a bit, Washington is a better football team than Detroit. I'm sorry.
I will agree with that.
Okay, good. I'm glad
you have me in agreement for that.
Yeah. Washington's a better football team, but they got outplayed on this day.
Yes.
But if they play 10 times, Washington probably wins 7 times. I think that's fair. A fair assessment. We got behind our skis early, obviously, in that first half, and absolutely couldn't recover until it was too late. And then by the time we did recover, the defense was too gassed to try and hold them. So we were definitely outcoached in the first half. We were definitely outplayed in the first half. We were out schemed. We were out everything in the first half until about halfway through the second quarter. And from that point on, Washington, I don't want to say dominated, but Washington kicked Detroit's butt around that entire time after that. But it was too big of a hole to dig.
Yeah.
That's kind of my overall assessment.
It was definitely a very big hole. And I'm looking forward to hearing what those in the chat have to say, whether or not they agree. We got Rob, Yam, P-Dub, Gus Bus, all in the house. Fire JDR chants already starting all the way in the future over in Japan there. Rob's looking for Trev to go off on one. I'm looking forward to him jumping on later because I know this guy is going to absolutely just have some fire there. Gus Bus asking, which team has the better leadership, though?
Man,
that's a tough question, I think, to answer, especially given some of the complaints over the weekend where Jack Del Rio kind of called out Jamin Davis, and people had, including the two of us, took some umbrage with that. And then Ron doubled down, said that we need to see some consistency, went at it again in the post-game conference, and specifically calling out Davis. And then
what's resulting from that?
And then Davis ends up posting on his Instagram. He had a 3 image slideshow. First image was him, just a solid shot of him. Second was a clip of his sack against Detroit. And then the third was from Django Unchained, the clip of the midnight raid that they were going to do, where the character says something to the effect of, did all this and all you guys do is criticize.
Exactly. And what we said at the end of the week after Jack Del Rio called him out is, what are we doing calling guys out publicly? That's not leadership. So to Gus's point there, which team has better leadership, you don't call guys out like that. You just don't. And everyone's like, well, yeah, but he's playing bad. You got to hold him accountable and all that other stuff. You do that behind closed doors. And I'm
You
sure
absolutely, yeah, you definitely have to hold your players accountable. And I think that's we posted the Bear Bryant quote, right? Like, it was just like, hey, when something goes bad, it's me. When it's, when something is, somewhat okay, then it's both of us. But if it goes really good, that's you.
That's right.
And so that's the kind of leadership I think we're looking for. Both of us have some military experience in this when it comes to leadership. And you're right. You praise in public and you criticize behind the doors. I definitely think he has to call Davis out. We don't know what that coaching is like. Obviously, it's not being effective if you're basing it off of the play that's on the field.
Yeah.
And so that's all we can do, right? So I think Jen, she talked about this. Jen Leno, she was like, you guys, calling everybody out who was talking about bad coaching. Is like, if you've never played for them, how can you say whether or not they're a good coach or a bad coach? And that's fair.
Yeah, I say stuff like that all the time. We have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. We have no idea what's going on in the meeting rooms, in the weight rooms, in the offices, in the training room, all that other stuff. We have no idea what these personalities are like, what leadership is like. We have no clue. So to criticize them as far as their coaching, all you can do, though, is you can look at the result. Mm-hmm. And you can say, if the result's not working, then you're going to have to make a change, right? So, but to say they like suck and they don't know what they're doing schematically and all that, we don't know, right? We watch some film, as they say, a little bit here and there, but we have nothing to compare it to. We don't know what's going on in New England and how their team is performing and being coached and designing schemes. We have no clue. All we can do is look at it and say, well, this play didn't work and that play didn't work. And then we criticize that way. But to say they're no good as coaches and all that, Jack Del Rio knows more about coaching than his entire defensive staff put together. Okay, that's probably just fact, right? Ron Rivera knows more about coaching than everyone on his staff put together because he's been a head coach for 15 years or whatever it is, something in that neighborhood. He's
definitely got the experience, right?
Yeah.
So,
and he knows what he's doing. It's not like he's a terrible coach. Winning is hard in the NFL. It's hard in every sport, but especially in the NFL. It's all got to just kind of come together. I mean, one year you're this incredible coach and Cam Newton takes you to the Super Bowl, and then the next year Cam Newton gets hurt and all of a sudden you're a terrible coach, right? Well, and then Cam Newton stops performing, and then all of a sudden you're a terrible coach and you get fired.
To be fair, I'm one who's called out Ron Rivera as a mediocre coach, right? And so the experience here, Gus Bus, doesn't necessarily, bring quality. And I've talked about how he's a 500 coach, right? He's not great, but one of the things that we have praised him for is that leadership. So
that's right.
I do want to say that. And there's that clip. I really wish I can find it of him going to the sidelines and mentoring one of the young players after they had something negative happen in their life. And people point to that, right, as something that's a good leadership from there. And I don't necessarily think Jack Del Rio is a bad leader. I disagreed with his approach on the Jamin Davis situation.
Yeah.
And the fact that Ron not only doubled down on it, but went back to that well. There are other players on that defense who have not been playing well. So, but again, we're not the ones that practice. Is there something they're seeing that is this trying to do something different with Jamin to get him to really kind of get it? I mean, you saw how effective he can be. He got a sack early on in the game.
And he played very well in the first quarter.
I don't think that he had that bad of a game. There was definitely consistency issues.
Right.
But that was with the entire team. That's not even just the defense. That's the entire team. I'm definitely going to have to talk about Scott Turner and his play calling there in the first half. They were just to blame for that first half disaster as the defense was. Special teams has its own fault in there as well. This was a total team loss. And so to point out at certain players, I just don't get that.
Yeah.
Don't get it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brian, Mike, 007, Corey, all in the chat. We appreciate you jumping in there. Corey says people want to make Jamin the scapegoat. It's not him. He's not the problem.
He's part of it, though. He's part of it.
He's not the solution, right?
Yeah,
At the very minimum, he's not the solution. A lot of people, Stoner, and this was you on our Ref the District account today.
Yeah.
Defending a no change at defensive coordinator. A lot of people
100%.
want the defensive backs coach, Chris Harris, to take an interim role as the defensive coordinator and fire Jack Del Rio after not just, I want to stress here, it's not just this performance, right? Like it's the last year and a half of performances that have not been good.
That's fair.
You were against that though. Why is that?
Well, we're going to have our guest Micro Mike here on in just a couple minutes. So allow me to give a couple minutes rant. Not a crazy rant, but just a little rant here on what JDR did in yesterday's game. Okay. So the problem with this particular game, the first half I'm talking about, and most specifically the first quarter, the problem was with coaching. And it wasn't anybody with the initials JDR that was the problem in the first half, especially the first quarter. So check this out. So we want to fire JDR. Yam, I know you're one of the guys that just can't stand JDR specifically, and there's a lot of people, and everybody was calling for his head after this game. Well, this is what happened. The first drive, Detroit went 3 and out on their first drive, right? Jamin Davis had a sack on a great play call by the defense where it was a stunt. He came up the middle untouched, got a sack. 3 and out for Detroit. Excellent defense. Great call. Great execution, right? They punt at 60 yards. Detroit punts at 60 yards. Dax Milne catches it, runs into his own guy, and gets a 2-yard gain. Oh, let's fire JDR for that. Right? Washington immediately goes out there and gets a 3 and out, right? Which includes a sack. And then Tress Way pummels a punt 62 yards, checks up at the 2-yard line, and Christian Holmes, for whatever reason, jumps on it and carries it into the end zone. Let's fire JDR for that. That's his fault. For instead of Detroit starting at the 2, they're starting at the 20. But that's JDR's fault, right? That's his fault for not having his defense out there. But the defense is coming right back out after a 3 and out very quickly, right? Detroit gets 1 first down, and then they have that long play to Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Your cover corner was covering their slot. Your slot corner is covering their slot receiver, and the slot receiver goes into the middle of the field, and your slot corner goes in the opposite direction, and double cover is on the outside. Do you really think Jack Del Rio in that play scheme has Benjamin St. Juste going to the outside? That's a poor execution, and he had everybody else lined up properly. That's on Benjamin St. Juste. That's not on the defensive scheme on that particular play. And he takes it all the way down to whatever yard line he took it down to. The next 3 plays, nothing, hold him to a field goal. Defense did their job. Fantastic job by the defense, right?
Not fantastic, but acceptable. I'll give you acceptable.
Acceptable except for the one play, right? Okay. Yeah. So they hold him to that field goal. Then Detroit kicks it off. Dax Milne takes it 3 yards deep, gets out to the 16. Let's fire JDR for that, for putting the offense at the 16-yard line. The offense
special
comes
teams
out,
had its fair share of problems. Yeah,
Carson Wentz comes out. He throws intentional grounding, puts the team all the way back to the 4-yard line. Let's fire JDR for that. Okay. Then they punt the ball, and they get a nice return. And next thing you know, Detroit is set up on the 43-yard line. And you're sending the defense right back out there. The offense has been out there for 6 plays. 6.
Six plays, 7 yards at this point.
That's right. So now you have the big run by Swift, right? Off the left side. When your safety is in position to make the play, he's the last man there, and he takes a bad angle into the hole, and Swift goes right by him. Do you think JDR told him to take the bad angle, or did JDR tell him to fill that hole in case Swift comes out? That's not on JDR. Again, it's bad execution. Forrest was there, did not make the play. Swift goes down. By the way, caught Swift from behind to keep him out of the end zone, right? What do? 4 yards, no gain, incomplete. They turned it over on downs.
Yep.
Didn't score. Okay? Send the offense back out there. So another great job by the defense.
That was
one play.
Yeah, one play that was a disaster, but holding them. That was the first play in that drive. They had first and goal at Washington 7.
Yep, and
they get 4 yards off the run, and then no gain, incomplete.
That's right. So now the offense goes back out there. 2 plays later, you got a strip sack on Carson Wentz for a safety. Good job, JDR. Way to coach the offense there, JDR, and cause a strip sack on your own quarterback. That's JDR's fault. Let's fire JDR, right? So then they got to punt it, right, on the free kick. You got to kick it back to him, right, and put your defense right back out there again. The guy returns at 52 yards, but let's fire JDR, right? That's his fault on the special teams, giving up the 52-yard return all the way down to the 31. Detroit makes one play, gets a 13-yarder, then it's incomplete, then it's 5-yard run, and now you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown who catches the touchdown pass on 3rd down. Perfectly covered by the defense. Perfectly designed and covered. Forced Goff out of the pocket. Sweat and Pain pummeled him. He throws up a wounded duck, and William Jackson slips trying to jump to defend the ball. William Jackson should have picked that ball off if he doesn't slip. But let's fire JDR because of that. Because William Jackson can't keep his feet and defend a wounded duck. Let's fire JDR.
It's not the only time a wounded duck ended up in the end zone for Detroit. We'll talk about that one in a little bit. Unless, Stoner, you got more of this rant?
I just got a few more. Hang with me.
Okay, I'm listening. And so is everybody else, because I know we've got a lot of comments there. We're going to let Stoner rant, and then we're going to touch back on this. But we do have Micro Mike waiting for us in the background. So
give me one more minute
here. Let's go ahead and hear the rest of this rant.
So then they kick off again right after the touchdown. They kick off to the 3-yard line, and he only gets out to the 16. But let's fire JDR because they can't even get past the 16-yard line on that kickoff. But you send the defense, or Washington goes 3 and out again, right? And you got a punt. Tressway, bad punt, out of bounds, 38 yards. Detroit set up at the 42-yard line again. The defense right back out there again. Detroit comes down, has a 23-yard pass, and then the defense hold, and they kick another field goal. Detroit, JDR's defense did very well there. Washington comes back out on offense, right? What do you think happens? A 3 and out again. And then the defense is right back out there. And then finally, Detroit has a nice drive. The defense was gassed. That was the first quarter. First quarter. 4 possessions for Detroit's offense, and you basically gave up 2 plays. And you want to blame JDR for all of that offensive disaster and special teams disaster. But we all want to fire JDR. I'm not willing to die on the hill of let's save JDR's job because he has a whole history. There's
been a track record of bad play,
but for this
miscommunication,
for this first half, that's not on Jack Del Rio. Rant finished. Let's bring in Micro Mike and
Code Talker says, "Good rant, Stoner."
I
know a lot of people there, including shout out to our friends over there in the DMV mess hall who will have something to say as we will dial that one back in. But right now, we need to walk into the Lions Den here and bring in Micro Mike. This is Lions Talk with Micro Mike by Chat Sports. Thank you, sir, for joining us here today. I'm sure you're way happier than Stoner or I right now.
Oh, it's nice for our Lions team to get a victory here. You know, we have been dealing with a lot of losses in the last couple of years, and it's good to have a victory by week 2 and not wait until week 9. So, yes, it is a good day for us.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike, and you're obviously around the team all the time and love what you do on your channel. Love it. All the different content that you put out, the live stream, game day live stream. Fantastic stuff.
Thank you.
And so if you guys get a chance, head over there onto his YouTube page and hit that subscribe button. Great stuff he's got there. After looking at all of this, and this is from obviously an outside perspective that doesn't see them all the time and doesn't follow them, Jared Goff threw for 240 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, didn't make any mistakes, basically any major mistakes. I find him extremely average.
Yep.
I was not impressed with this performance, stats aside. Am I crazy because I'm not on the inside? Or is that who he is?
He's an average quarterback. I've been saying this since we acquired him from the Rams there. You know, he came with the Matthew Stafford trade. We got Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford, but he's what we need right now. And when you're in year 2 of a rebuild, right now we're just trying to get the foundation around this team, offense and defense, to what point where we eventually get to the heir apparent to Stafford, Goff in the draft, or whether it be a trade for a Lamar Jackson or something like that down the road.
That's pretty bold to think Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, well, rumors came out the other day regarding Lamar Jackson wanting to come to Detroit, Miami, or Philadelphia, considering that we have a really good offensive line, wide receivers, and he likes our head coach. And obviously we got a lot of cap space this upcoming next season and a ton of draft picks. So it's a plausible situation. Not saying it's going to happen, but I do fully expect the Lions to look to get another quarterback, whether it be the draft or in a trade of such scenario.
And then all of a sudden you've got these weapons that nobody was really paying attention to.
Oh, I think this is the greatest part of watching the NFL games. I've been at training camp last year, all with the Detroit Lions. I was there the whole time this year, representing for Herman Moore. That's who I work for. And last year when I was at training camp, it was absolute foobar. Watching this offense, this defense, it was a cluster. You got a new quarterback in there. It was not good. This year it's a whole different story. The offense has been on all cylinders throughout all training camp. Just Amon-Ra St. Brown was killing every single play. And when I seen the training camp, I suspected the Lions would have one of the best offenses in the NFL. I suspect that Amon-Ra St. Brown would be a breakout player, potentially get 1,600 yards this season. And DeAndre Swift, I spoke to him, and he is a different looking player this year than he was last year. So, seeing the offense from a Lions perspective regarding the Philadelphia Eagles and with the Commanders, it's not a shocker at all to see that, putting up 35 points each game.
Yeah, this is the 3rd game in a row they've had 35 points, correct?
Yeah, I'm not. Last year it was the Green Bay Packers. They didn't rest. They rest their starters half the games. I guess I really want to throw that in there. But
Still counts.
I guess it counts. But we got a new offense coordinator, Ben Johnson. He is the former assistant tight ends coach, and him and Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, they're really putting this thing together and making it more a dynamic attacking offense. Something that we've not had when we had Anthony Lynn last year, who is more of the bland type of offense there.
Yeah. Well, that particular offense managed to gash Washington yesterday to the tune of those 36 points. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about here is, really and Stoner was kind of talking about it there in his little rant. Washington's defense kind of held its own for the most part, minus there was the 4 big plays that they had, a couple 50-yard runs and a big pass. Obviously you have talents like Swift and St. Brown. How comfortable are you at having that consistency of those big plays coming out from Detroit?
I fully expect it. Again, this is something that we've seen in training camp. There's always somebody open, whether it be Amon-Ra St. Brown or a DJ Chark, who unfortunately didn't make that catch this Sunday, but somebody's open. TJ Hawkinson, Swift out of the backfield. Then you bring in, we got Quintez Cephas. So the wide receivers, the tight ends are there. The weapons are there. It's just, who does Jared Goff want to get it to? And will they catch it? I guess that's the biggest question. And not really worried about offense. Again, Jameson Williams going to be coming back to Detroit here in a couple weeks, who we traded up in the draft to get from 32 to 12. and that's just going to make the offense even more dynamic. So these big splash plays that we've been getting, I suspect it's just going to keep happening. It's just exactly how this offense is formed. They do the run, big old play action, make a play, whether it be a jet sweep with Amon-Ra St. Brown or kind of use them like a Deebo Samuel. But I suspect it's going to keep happening, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. So here's a question I have also. Again, this is from the outside because when Dan Campbell was hired, right, everybody around the league was kind of laughing at Detroit, especially that first press conference. I mean, we've done that with a lot of coaches who turned out to be really good coaches, but we didn't see this coming. Did you guys see this coming after that press conference when he was talking about, what was he talking about? Biting knees or something? Yeah. So did you guys see that coming? Even then?
I did, because there's a lot of stuff that they didn't show, out to the mainstream media. We have obviously the Detroit Lions have their own YouTube channel, and they do videos of what's taking place behind the scenes. And right after the press conference, he actually went to the Ford factory and met with a bunch of, just average folks there. Instead of him signing autographs, he had all the fans sign his hat and his stuff to remind him that this is what Detroit's all about. Look, we have a culture problem here in Detroit. It's, you can have the smartest guy in the world like Matt Patricia, right? He's a rocket scientist, absolute failure as a head coach. But you need to have a guy that can take a bunch of men, grown men, put them together and learn how to win in a city. Make no mistake, Detroit is a failing city regarding football, it's not LA, it's not Miami, it's not something you covet. So it's difficult to get a winning culture here and attract free agents. So to have a guy that's a player's coach, a guy that is more of the dude, I think that really helps. And he's got coaches around him too, right? He's not the X's and O's guy, but he's got the Deuce Staley, the running back coach, assistant coach right there. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator, bright mind. Aaron Glenn, good defensive coordinator, and he's got all these former players in his coaching staff, and it's like the Avengers, and it's really starting to work here in Detroit. And hopefully, this is the staff that can bring the Lions out of despair and finally be a relevant team in the NFL.
Yeah, that was a team that went 0-10 and then 3-3 in those last games that they had there. One of the things that kind of comes with this, and we talk about it on the Washington side, is there's this black cloud over the organization. You just can't seem to get over yourselves. And kind of, what was the feeling as you have a great first half, the team's up 22-0, and then within just, over 2/3 of a quarter, Washington storms back to make it just a one-score game. What was kind of going through your mind at that point? Were you worried that this was the same old Lions? You're going to give up this big lead and lose the game, or do you have a little bit more confidence now with the players and coaching staff you have?
Look, I was telling myself this is going to happen. I know I've seen this story a million times. We're going to come back. We're going to lose this game, the same old Lions, because, look, we're still rebuilding. We're just in year 2. Yes, the offense is good, but the defense is not that good. So we're going to have times where we may score a lot of points, but we're still going to lose. You're going to have times where a Carson Wentz or an offense like your guy is going to come in, maybe stall out in the first half, but blow up in the second half and win. And I'm sure it's going to happen this season where, we may come out ahead, but we're going to eventually lose the game. That's just part of what's taking place for our team, because we're not top tier talent right now. We're not a team that is fully built, and we're going to sustain fails like this. So when I was watching that game, I was like, this is it. Same old Lions. Here we go again.
It's going. Yeah, we're talking with Micro Mike. You can check him out on his YouTube channel, Detroit Lions Talk with Micro Mike by Chat Sports. Go by there and hit that subscribe button. We got a question from one of our viewers here, Jim Churchill, who says, who do the Lions play next? I believe we play Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Yes, we play the Vikings. Yes.
What are the Lions' chances? I mean, Minnesota's playing now, or they will be playing here in the next half hour, but so we don't really know what they are yet. But what do you think, just looking at from your perspective on the Lions, what do you think the prognosis is for the rest of the year?
Well, it comes from Minnesota. We always go back and forth. It's always a close game. Last year, we won with a last second touchdown, and then the game before they won with a last second field goal. It's just
Right.
how it kind of works there, but they got a little more talent, so I suspect they'll probably win the game. For the Lions here, and for what my expectations are, and a lot of our fans, is to at least get to 7-8 wins. Build up from 3 wins last year. Show that you're going in the right direction. We understand we don't have all the talent in the world on defense yet. Yeah, we got an Aiden Hutchinson, but our linebackers are not that good. We don't got that great safeties. We only got one really good corner right now. So there's a lot of pieces still missing, and obviously franchise quarterback. So if we could just show that we're going to compete in every game, we may not win every game, but damn it, we're going to fight to the last second. That's what we want to see here in Detroit, because we're used to Matt Patricia and collapsing. We're used to the 0-16. I mean, you guys have seen it all. We've been a laughing stock, so we just don't want to be that laughing stock.
Well, as an outsider, again, we kind of, there's a lot of similarities there with Washington in year 3 of the rebuild. What do you feel, from watching this game against the Commanders? Where do you feel Washington's going to end up by the end of it?
They could be 8-9 wins. I know that may sound a little crazy because we just beat you, but your offense has got a lot of speed, and that kills. I think you guys can strike at any minute offensively. You've seen it right there. You almost beat us in the second half just like that. If your defense can shore up a little bit once you get Chase Young back, look, sky's the limit. If you got a defensive line, you can beat up on anybody. You can make the playoffs, and it just takes one time. We've seen it, 2008, where the Giants and their defensive line went to the Super Bowl and beat Tom Brady. That was undefeated at that point. So I could see them winning and making a wild card run, 8-9 wins, depending how Wentz. Can he stay healthy? I think that's a thing. I love Sam Howell, though. So if at some point he gets injured and Howell becomes the quarterback, I think you guys got an absolute stud there in the 5th round. So I think the sky's the limit there. Maybe some changes on defense, get some better secondary place somehow, and you should be good to go. I know the Giants are 2-0 right now. I don't really believe it. I think
fraudulent.
A little bit. Yeah, fraudulent. I believe you guys are better than they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that's how the season ends for Washington. I think that helps a lot, especially after a loss to a team that a lot of people felt Washington should walk away with, given that offensive talent. I mean, the defensive line, you hear all the time about the 4 first-rounders who are up there on the defensive line. Obviously, Chase Young is out right now. How did you feel about your offensive line holding up against our defensive line, these first-rounders, when you had the entire interior out? The starting interior was out. I was salivating at the opportunity for Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne to go up against backups and get after Jared Goff. How did you feel after this game? They gave up 3 sacks, but really held their own, and they're not even the starters.
Oh, my God. Coming into this game, I was nervous as can be. I mean, you're talking about our Pro Bowl left guard there out, our Pro Bowl center out, and Big V, who's our right guard, same thing. And so we get a guy who we picked up on practice squad, Dan Skipper, is our left guard, who's actually a tackle at 6'9", the tallest guard in the NFL right now. We got our backup center there and a third-string guard. So I was freaking worried. For us to only come away with getting 3 sacks, it was huge, commendable to Frank Haley, the Lions offensive line coach, what they did there, using the tight ends to help out a little bit. I mean, I thought we were going to get sacked, 6-7 times. I thought it was going to be scary. So, going against such a good defensive line, such as you guys, and before that with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we had some injuries there as well. It's wow. Our offensive line does have some depth, and if there is injuries down the road going forward, I'm not as worried because we went against such a great defensive line as you guys.
Yeah. Mike, can you do me a favor? I know you got some pull over there with the Lions. I mean, you work for Herman Moore, for crying out loud. I mean, can you do me a favor and tell them to stop pumping that crowd noise in there into Ford Field? I know they're doing it. You can't tell me they're not pumping in crowd noise.
It gets really freaking loud over there. I was talking to Herman Moore. He's interesting because generally when he has a suite, you have to be quiet so you don't interrupt the people next to you in a suite. He said they had no problem this time because everyone was so freaking loud. But
really?
That little dome there, the 65,000, it gets real freaking loud. You hear about Seattle Seahawks, the 12th man, but Detroit, when the fans in a frenzy, It gets just like that, but I can't do that unless unless we play you again. But when we go against the Giants, no, we play at New York. But what's the other team we play?
The Cowboys.
The Cowboys. We're at Dallas, so
so that's it. So that's all the NFC East.
Yeah,
for the year.
We're the only ones that had to go to Detroit and unable to walk away with a victory. Well, Mike, we appreciate you jumping on here, giving us that perspective, both from the Detroit side of it and, like I said, giving us a little hope that maybe there's some good times on the way, even though Washington unable to secure the victory here against Detroit. But we appreciate you coming out. Stoners mentioned your channel a little bit. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Chat Sports, Lions Talk with Mike about Chat Sports, or Lions Nation Unite YouTube channel or .com. Write articles there, and you honestly just put my name in it. I'll pop up somewhere. It's generally pretty everywhere. But yeah, it's all about Lions Talk. And on Thursdays we do a show where we talk Lions. But if questions come up regarding Commanders or any other subject in the NFL, we are happy to talk about it.
Again, we appreciate you. And we're going to get back to this Commanders talk. Thank you, Mike, for jumping on with us.
Appreciate you, Mike.
Thank you so much, man. Good luck the rest of the season, guys.
Same to you, buddy. All right.
I really felt like that was, that felt good, finding that, the opposition feels like this team is, has some, potential. Yeah, I think 8-9 wins is right there where I think a lot of people
I think so.
Had Washington. So I think a lot of people had, one of those wins being the Lions. Stoner, we were talking about Jack Del Rio beforehand and how really, you were putting it a lot on, the offensive play.
Yep.
On the special teams play,
100%.
The defense was relatively doing its part given the issues. They did have the one longer drive. They gave up the touchdown to make it 22-0. Right. But even after that, they were holding their own headed into the half.
Yep. They did 2 straight 3-and-outs after that.
Where though is the problem, because obviously you let up 36 points. There's going to be, you got to put some of that on the defense. And one of those aspects is the big plays.
Yeah.
Is that really, are we going to pinpoint that on, Jamin Davis, maybe out of position for one of those? Defoe, who was the stud last week, right? He was on everybody's go-go list.
Yep.
He was out of place. You had, typical miscommunication happening in the back end there.
Yep.
This is, again, not the first game this has happened. This is continual. Isn't that Jack Del Rio's responsibility?
Absolutely. When it comes down to it, it is obviously his responsibility. He's the scapegoat. He's the guy who gets fired regardless of what is really going on behind closed doors. He's always going to be the guy who takes the fall. Now, Ron's not going to fire him. He's not even going to fire him mid-season. Jack Del Rio is the last wall of protection for Ron Rivera himself, right? So as long as he's got JDR there, he's got that opportunity that when it gets really bad, then he can go to the JDR, let's fire him and give myself, Ron Rivera, a little bit more time, okay? But to kind of answer your question is that it's not one big thing. It's not a schematic thing. It's not a Jamin Davis thing. It's not a Defoe thing. It's not any of those things specifically. It's the consistency of being good, play in and play out, drive in and drive out, game in and game out, right? If you look at that first half, the first quarter specifically, 2 plays defensively that they screwed up. And every other play they played very, very well. If this is good, if this is a good bar of where they played defensively, and let's take those 2 plays out. I understand you can't take them out.
Can't take them out. But
let's just say you take those 2 plays out. This defense in that first quarter played up here. They were that good. They basically had a 23-yard pass and like a 13-yard pass in all those other drives during that first quarter. Otherwise, they played fantastic. They were in position. They made plays. They stopped runs. They broke up passes. St. Juice should have had an interception. Cole Holcomb should have had an interception on the swing pass to Swift. Guys were pummeling their receivers a couple of times, right? they were there, but the consistency to do it every time, you give up that one play, changes the entire complexity, obviously, of that drive, changes the complexity of the half, changes the complexity of the game.
Yeah,
and that's the difference between the good teams and the not good teams.
We were coming back 22-15 and another big play there. And this is exactly what I'm talking about here from the DMV mess hall saying John Keim tweeted, Detroit gained 227 yards on 6 explosive plays offensively. The other 55 plays, they gained 198 yards.
That's exactly right.
And that's good defense. 198 yards off to 55 plays. That's not a good offense. Yeah. Really, what it comes down to is this is what I've kind of been mentioning and even tweeted about. You have a 58-yard run, you have a 50-yard run, you have a 49-yard pass. Then you have 3 passes that go for 20 yards there. Those right there are what killing you. That's right. What's killing this defense when it comes to there. And for me, that comes down to more than when it's that consistent. It's more of a consistency issue with the coaching than it is with the players, because you're having those kind of issues. And that's why I'm with people who are, we want to see a change. Something needs to happen on this defense. And a lot of that does come down to Ron Rivera. I saw that from Rockman on the chat there, Ron Rivera being responsible. And this is kind of going back to that Bear Bryant quote that we shared. When things are going bad, shouldn't they be looking at themselves instead of calling out, your second-year linebacker?
That's just not smart to call anybody out. I don't care if it's your second-year linebacker or your 8th-year defensive back like a Kendall Fuller or whatever. They know they screwed up. They get screamed at in the locker room and on the sidelines. You don't need to make them look bad in public, and that's a huge mistake. And I felt that Jack Del Rio did that, so Ron Rivera had to kind of double down to back up his coach today when he doubled down on Jamin Davis. But and you'll never get me off of this particular stance. In the NFL, the NFL is built for offense. The rules are designed for offense. You even heard it on the broadcast that they're doing everything that they can because the NFL knows that's what sells is offense. So they're going to do everything they can within the rules to make the rules more offensive, right? So if you just watch games and if you watch these plays, there are guys open on every single play. Okay, on every single game, but it's up to the rest of the team to be able to execute and to have the talent at quarterback to be able to know who's open, where they're open, and get them the ball and give them a chance to make a play. Because you'll see it all in that Detroit game when Goff was making bad throws. And like I said before, he was average to below average.
Yeah, he honestly, for a 4-touchdown game, he actually was not that good.
Right.
I mean, I know the passer rating was 121.7, but passer rating
that's fine.
Right.
But there were guys where he threw into triple coverage one time on that St. Juice play that he should have had a pick. It was basically right to him, right? There was 3 guys on him. And then there was a guy 10 yards to his right, to the receiver's right, who'd had nobody on him. And Jared Goff, who was under tremendous pressure, couldn't see him and had to try and fit it in there. And that's what this is all about. So defensively, you got no shot. If you're playing against teams that are executing properly, you're going to get burnt every week in and week out. That's just the way it is. And it's a quarterback-driven league. The rules are made for offenses, and that's just kind of how it's going to be. So it's not going to change by firing Jack Del Rio. It's not going to change. I promise you that.
There's no mid-season miracle in line for that one.
You bring in Ndamukong Suh, it's not going to change. Okay? It's not. I'm sorry.
Chase Young?
That could help. Cam Curl can certainly help.
Curl can potentially help. Landon Collins. A lot of people calling for Landon Collins right now.
I mean, there's a reason he's sitting at home. There's
some desperation right now because we just lost Detroit. Wasn't just the defense, though. Corey here, Carson Wentz wasn't the problem yesterday. The offensive line got obliterated. I'm not even going to put it fully on the offensive line there. I'm not going to put it on Carson. I'm going to put that on the other side of the sidelines there. That is honestly Scott Turner, right? We're a lot of the focus is on Jack Del Rio because of those explosive plays that were allowed. The defense allowed 36 points, and you saw an offensive explosion in the second half. Washington outscored Detroit 27-14 in the second half.
Yeah.
But when you dig yourself a 22-point hole, that's not going to be good enough. Yeah. This offense, and we saw this in week 1, is streaky. It is good when it is on.
And in the second half, it was really good.
In the second half, it was really good. That first half, not good. How many 3-and-outs? And we saw that Washington scores 14 points for the first 2 drives last week.
Yeah.
And then stalls out for a great period of time, ends up behind Jacksonville, and then has to storm back and score 14 more points to put away the game. This time, again, they were just dormant for that first half. They finally were able to turn it, and Scott Turner, give him credit for that second half play. But if you're going to give him credit for the second half play, you've got to really get on him for that first half. And again, the reason why I'm not putting it necessarily in the offensive line, you know that they're bringing pressure.
Yeah.
Right. Why are you calling a 7-step drop back?
That's right. That's exactly right.
When they're bringing it. And here's where, and Mike talked about this when we had him on, the speed kills. You've got, a lot of people point to Miami as having the fastest wide receiver group. Washington's no slouch here. They got some burners. Yep. Get them the ball in space. We've talked about that as far as offensive talent. Get them ball in space and let them run. Dump the ball off to J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson and let them pay the defense for rushing against you. But Carson Wentz didn't have the time to do a 7-step drop back. And that's where things were going really south. That's one of the reasons why you're seeing that also, that strip sack. It just not good play calling there in the first half for Washington.
Right. And here's some of my notes I took when I was watching that first quarter. Detroit, 10 men in the box. These are on all these different plays. 10 men in the box. They were daring Carson Wentz to take that 7-step drop and try and get some of those guys open, and he couldn't do it, right? Because they had so many guys up there. They rushed 7 guys. They rushed 6 guys. Look at over here. Detroit, 9 in the box. Next play, Detroit, 9 in the box. 10 in the box. Rushed 7. They rushed 7. And on this other play right here, they rushed 8 guys. 8 guys. And all 3 receivers that Washington had going out were all going on those longer routes instead of breaking it off, seeing the rush. And that's in the design of the play.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that Terry McLaurin, who is a fantastic receiver, a smart guy, is not looking over there seeing they're going to blitz. They're going to bring 8 guys. I should adjust my route with an audible or whatever, but that's not in the play call. So I can't. I've got to run my 15-yard out. And by the time he's done, Carson Wentz is on the ground. So that's on the offense. Exactly what you're saying, Nathan. That was on the offensive play calling. And you don't have Carson Wentz standing there in the end zone when you're on your own 3-yard line trying to throw a pass. You're asking for trouble. Now, that was only a 4-man rush on that particular play, but that happens sometimes. On a 4-man rush, you're going to get beat. And they got beat. They strip sacked, and then, just kept tumbling down from there. And then exactly what these guys are saying, you go into the second half, you make all these adjustments defensively, offensively, special teams. Dax Milne was not returning kicks, right? Or when he did, he was actually returning them pretty well. I think he had one out to the 30-something yard line. Offensively, they're running some quick slants, some bubble screens, some swing passes. Carson was getting out of the pocket. Carson was running, all these things. And it was working. And that was the adjustments that they made that they should have made a whole lot earlier.
Yeah, a little slow on there. Gregory, we talked about this, right? So Detroit had 3 linemen out, couldn't do anything against them. Now, Jim, they did get pressure to Goff, not as often as we like. They got the 3 sacks and consistent pressure. They are just right there. They do need to change something. Pressures are good. against most quarterbacks. You are going to have to get home against somebody like next week's opponent because they can escape. So that's going to be some trouble there. This is where we're talking about this is a team loss. Like, it's not just going to be on, I think a lot of focus is on Jack Del Rio, but there was other issues here. A lot of people calling for Dax Milne in that regard. You had a little bit of praise for him. Where do you stand on Dax Milne continuing to be the man in the return game? Are you ready to see Antonio Gibson?
No, I mean, you can't put your number one running back there to return kicks. You just can't do it. Maybe when Brian Robinson comes back, I don't know. We'll just see. But you just can't have that valuable of a player back there. Dax Milne is wide receiver 5. He barely plays. I think he played, 5 or 6 plays offensively. He had 1 catch. Good for him. So he's expendable if he gets hurt back there, for lack of a better word. It's not a personal shot at him. But listen, if the ball goes in the end zone, let it go in the end zone and stop trying to be a hero.
Yeah. Okay? Again, with the coaching, right? Like you got to know the limitations of your team and put them in the position to succeed.
And now, having said all that, my other thing that I got a problem with is when this team crawled back within 29-21 in the fourth, maybe it was the third. I don't remember exactly when it was. Fourth quarter. They were down 8 points. They went for 2. Now, you seem to be defending this move.
The math checks out, my friend.
The math doesn't check out.
The math checks out.
Why is it? Don't put up any stupid chart.
I'm going to bring up the charts.
Because that chart doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I looked at it for hours. And I'm looking like, it doesn't make sense. And then I ask for explanations, and people give explanations, and that's fine. But then I look at the rest of it, and I still want to. It just whatever. If this is the case, if you're gonna say this is what we're doing, then every single time you should go for 2. Never kick an extra point again.
So this is where, so I have right now for our audio listeners, I have a Excel spreadsheet up kind of explaining the math breakdown. So going for 2 off of the first touchdown, you're down the 2 scores. Going for
down
2,
14.
You're down 14.
Sorry, you're down 15.
No, you're down 14.
You're right. You're down 14.
You're down 14. The math checks out that you actually get a 58.8% chance of winning if you go for a 2-point conversion off of the first touchdown. It then drops a little bit going down. And then obviously if you just kick an extra points, there's some things that change the factors in that regard.
But
you
why
were
does
adamantly
it change?
against it?
Why does it change? So it says if you go for 2 on the first score, but kick on the second score, that's a 58% chance of winning the game. But if you kick on the first score and go for 2 on the second score, which is doing the exact same thing, the exact same amount of points, the exact same amount of tries, but now all of a sudden you're down to 40-something%.
Yeah, 44.9.
Why does it change based on when you do it? It shouldn't matter when you do it. Whenever you do it, or you don't do it. But stop saying all these numbers and everything. If you're down 8, kick the extra point, so now you're down 7. If you want to go down and when you score and then go for 2 to try to win it, I will understand that. But you don't make it, and now all of a sudden you have to go for 2 just to tie the game.
Yeah. It was really confusing to us on the stream yesterday. We thought there was something wrong with Joey Slye, right? We were like, there's got to be something there. And apparently there really was something there because he missed the extra point, which botched everything after all said and done when it comes to trying to come back into this game. My particular kind of nuance to this is, so I'm an analytics guy. I'm with the new age of like, you should go for it on like a 4th and 4 instead of punting, and those kind of things. Now, I will say that the problem I'm having is Ron has time and time again told us he is not an analytics guy.
Right.
He is a go for it by the gut.
Right.
What was in his gut to tell him the game flow at that point was in Washington's favor? Remind you, if they went for 2 the time before, they got to 15 points. Right. We questioned it, but they scored. You two were particularly happy that they got the 2-point conversion.
No, but that was smart because
it got you within 7 points.
Got you within 14.
No, because it was 22-15 after that.
Okay.
They score a touchdown, get the extra point. They score a touchdown,
got you within
get the
7.
They get you the 2-point conversion,
right,
gets you within 7. You guys were pretty happy about that.
Right.
Okay? Because it was successful.
Because you were down how much? You were down 9?
You were down 9 and when you're going for the 2. Yes.
That makes sense, my friend.
Okay.
Not
it
8.
Doesn't. But you argued against it in the stream. But anyways, my point to this is the game flow, the gut, right? Going with your gut. You at this point, you feel like the momentum's with you, but then you give up a big play and another touchdown. And this particular touchdown was very embarrassing. D Swift's on the ground.
Touchdown?
The touchdown, D Swift was on the ground.
Okay. Yeah.
He outruns, half the 5 defenders that are back there. It's on a 3rd and 15.
Right.
You score a touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like the game is back in your, you're back down to 2. You're back down 2 scores. I don't feel like the game's in your hand to be going for 2 at that point, because then it ended up being backbreaking.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of people criticizing the defense on that particular play, right? On the DeAndre Swift, in terms of the defensive scheme, it was 3rd and 15, and they had 5 defensive backs back to where the goal, not the goal line, where the first down line is, right? They had that defended perfectly. They pressured, they brought a blitz, right?
They tipped the ball.
Jamin Davis was right there. He's about ready to pummel Goff. Sweat tips the ball, which causes the receiver Swift to fall down. There are 5 guys, and if you speed it up to when he gets up, there are 7 Washington defenders around DeAndre Swift, right? Almost bracketing him. And he wasn't even touched when he went into the end zone. Okay? Don't tell me that's bad play calling. That's not. If they tackled him, he's short of the first down, which was the entire plan of that. So again, that was not a scheme thing. But anyway, we got off the subject of the 2-point conversion. I think it's dumb. If you're down 17-3 in the game, right, and you score a touchdown to make it 17-9, you're telling me you go for 2 there? You don't.
You went with it the time before. Why not do it again?
Because you were down 9.
You were down 9 the time before. That's what we said.
No. You were down 8.
22 to 14. You were down. Okay, you were down 8.
You were down 8, and if you kick the extra point, you're now down 7. Right? The time before they were down 9, and they went for 2 to bring you within 7, to bring you within extra point range. Right? You do it when it's 9. You don't do it when it's 8. You're not going to be able to convince me. I'm sure the math is all there, the analytics, all the nerdery stuff is out there. You'll never convince me it's right.
Stoner's sniff test isn't buying this one.
If it's right, you just never kick an extra point again.
Well, they did try kicking an extra point, and it ends up not making it through the uprights.
Yeah.
A lot of chat there on special teams. Yeah. We talked a little bit about it. With Dax Milne taking it 3 yards deep and not being able to, you have to have that awareness, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're given the 25-yard line. Take it unless you think you can get past there. And Dax Milne, Mr. Steal Your Girl, must be feeling very confident in his ability to get past that 25-yard line, because he continually was taking it out. I've seen some flashes of him being a capable returner. I did not see those flashes.
He's capable.
Yes, sir. He's nothing exciting.
That's right. He's not a difference maker. And nobody has ever said anything more perfect than what metaphor says right there. That is absolutely 1,000,000,000% true. That's why I'm sitting at home critiquing, criticizing, and killing, and not a coach, because I'm not smart enough.
Our first T-shirt you were able to purchase to support the channel.
Oh, yeah.
It was this one right back here.
Yeah.
Ref the district on the front, and on the back, #JustAFan. We will fully admit that
1,000,000,000%.
is that, we're not coaches, we're not GMs. We're just a fan. We're calling it like we see it. Part of that's holding the team accountable in the regards that where they need to be. The team was not good yesterday.
And by the way,
not good.
Nice onside kick, Joey Sly. Good Lord.
Yeah, didn't even make the 10 yards. Let's get into the go-goes and no-goes.
And then we got our dollar here, too.
Yeah, we do get dollar. I'm not looking forward to that one.
No, you should not be.
Let's get the go-goes and no-goes. Let's hear you in the chat as well. Who do you have as far as a go-go? Not a whole lot to be excited about in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But there was still some things that went well for Washington.
Yep, absolutely. Carson Wentz was a go-go. Carson Wentz sucked in the first half. Carson Wentz was fantastic in the second half. He's my go-go because he was killing it. He was putting that ball all over the field. And I kind of want to add Jahan Dotson into there. I know we're only supposed to do one, but Jahan Dotson was making some incredible catches. He had a hip catch. He had a side catch. That dude's hands are legit. He's every bit as advertised. So those are my go-goes.
We got a couple people agreeing with you there on Dotson, Rockman, and Fats both go that way. Commandalorian with Wentz as well.
Absolutely.
Gregory saying Carson didn't suck. He had guys all over him the entire time, right? Terry from Rockman as well. DMV commenting on that one. If Stoner was a coach, John Bates would have made the 53. Yeah, Curtis in there as a go-go.
Curtis was great. Curtis was great.
Dave and DC, Scary Terry started getting it going when they finally decided to pass it. The best player.
Absolutely.
4 catches, 75 yards there for Terry McLaurin. Again, coming in behind Curtis Samuel on that. I'm going to go with Dotson as well. You kind of took my thunder there, picking the second player. But the things that he's doing in his second NFL game as a wide receiver are just nasty. He is absolutely this is anybody who let yourself get called out. Okay. If you were not a fan of him when they drafted him, that's fine. You can by all means turn and have a different opinion now. It's okay. It is all right. Call yourself out. Say, yeah, I'm an idiot. I thought that they should have gone with Chris Olave. I'm an idiot. I thought they should have gone with Jameson Williams or something else. It's fine. It's fine. I personally, I was advocating that they stay at 11 and take Kyle Hamilton. When they traded back, though, I was pretty happy with that. It was just like good to go. A lot of people thought Chris Olave was going to be the pick. Then they picked Jahan Dotson, and people were mad.
Right.
They're not mad now. This kid's got 3 touchdowns in 2 games and just shows absolutely nasty footwork and may be the best wide receiver on this team, which is saying something when you have Curtis Samuel, who's absolutely just doing that OG Samuel type role before Debo Samuel was a thing. And you got Terry McLaurin, who we know I love Terry.
That's right.
So, some really good things coming out there. All right. Let's try to keep it to one no-go. Okay.
Okay. Well, since this whole thing, this all day today and obviously yesterday after the game was all about fire Jack Del Rio and hire Chris Harris and all this other noise about Jack Del Rio's the worst and he doesn't know what he's doing and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say Nate Katzler, who is the special teams coach. If we're going to say the coaches, it's all on the coaches. Well, the special teams were atrocious yesterday in their coverage, in their returns, in their punting. Tressway wasn't great. He had one good one. He kicked one out of bounds.
The one out of bounds might have been on purpose to prevent another big return.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good excuse. They had the play in the on Tressway's best punt that for whatever reason Christian Holmes decided to jump on it even though it was coming back the other way. I don't know why he did that. You had the missed extra point. You had the failed 2-point, not failed 2-point, the kick, the onside kick. I mean, they were just atrocious yesterday. So I'm putting it on the coach then. If that's what we seem to be doing, we don't want to blame the players. We want to blame Jack Del Rio for everything. All right. So I follow that model, and I say the special teams coach.
All right. Stoner's going to blame it. We got some other no-goes here. We got Fuller as a no-go. Fats says both corners. Dave is taking the entire Washington offensive line. Metaphor's taking both sides of the line there that we're failing to live up to expectations.
All legit.
Mandalorian is going with the fire. JDR and the special team coach and drive him home.
Yeah.
No goes from Corey here. Defense, offensive line, special teams. Again, the list is going to go on and on and on. And yeah. I said it before. I get that we scored 27 points in the second half, but if the offense is more consistent in the first half, you don't have you're not going into halftime 22 to nothing.
Yep.
Scott Turner is going to be my no-go. Great change up in the second half. I can appreciate that, but that's not going to matter. Again, they outscored their opponent 27-14 in the second half. They still lost this game. And it's because they were down 22 points to start with. Gonna give my no-go there to Scott Turner for not making those adjustments earlier and at least getting us a field goal, at least getting some of the momentum, getting that defense some time to rest. You know, that's something that I think that you have to really take into account there is just, again, that continual thing. Because the defense, and I'm not a Jack Del Rio apologist. I am on the fire Jack Del Rio. That was my quote unquote one of my we called it, ended up being like a lukewarm prediction, but it was a bold prediction I made like 2 months ago that Jack Del Rio is not going to make it another season with Washington.
Yeah, you could end up being right.
So that's where I stand on Jack Del Rio. But when you actually again look at those defensive numbers, if they can just rein in those big plays, the defense is going to be okay. The offense, still exciting. You can't go to sleep for a half, though. You can't do that. You got to put some points up there. Put 10 points on the board in the first half, and this is an entirely different game. And I think that Washington can pull that off. We talked about
won
this.
That game.
We talked about this. If Carson Wentz is just capable and the defense plays up to its expectations, this team is going to win double-digit games.
Yep.
But right now, they're not there. We'll see where they end up.
I still think they do, by the way.
You still think they win double-digit games?
Yep.
They can absolutely put it together. Just like our man Stoner can put it together on the pay-up portion of our dollar. Things did not go my way, I think, here. Did not go Metaphor's way as well. He had a 100 yards for 100 for Gibson, right? Here he's saying Scott is half a no-go. JDR didn't adjust the entire game. Full no-go, dust up right there. Very.
Well, you missed Metaphor. You're going to have to go.
Gregory's calling me nuts here.
Metaphor, you're going to have to go back and watch this video again and see my rant about the first quarter, specifically about JDR. And sorry, that wasn't on JDR. And I'm not an apologist. I'm just saying that first quarter was not on him. All right, so we had 22 different score predictions on Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
and
all of them picking all of them picking Washington.
19 picked Washington. Gregory picked Detroit. He's in here. Gregory.
Yeah, Gregory is also saying that Philadelphia is going to absolutely smash Washington.
No, we'll get there on Wednesday.
We're going to get there on Wednesday. I can't say I'm going to be against him on that one. That one's not looking good for us.
Gregory had it 24-23 Detroit. Grandizer 12 had it 25-23 Detroit. And guess who did the best? I think for the second week in a row.
You did, Stoner? No.
No.
Gus.
Shady Katie.
Shady Katie
had it 31-28 Detroit. She had the closest prediction.
All right. Well,
and I think she had the closest last week. And
broken clock is right twice a day, I suppose.
Right. All right, let's get to dollar here.
Love you, Shady.
Trev jumped out there and said Bates was going to have more catches than Logan Thomas. It was 3-2 for Logan had 3. Bates had 2. So both Stoner and Nathan took the bet. So Stoner and Nathan won $1 there.
Okay.
This one is, I don't know what we should do with this. I think I know what we should do, but this was Turner was going to have more catches than Bates, but he wasn't even active. Does that make that a null bet?
Yeah, let's go with a null because we would have revisited before the game to check that one.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That would have been me and you would have lost on that one, by the way.
Yeah, all the more reason then.
Yeah, right.
I'm definitely on the Cole Turner. I messaged right before the inactive list came out. I messaged the group chat and I was just like, "Hey, we got to do a same game parlay. Put me on Cole Turner plus 1,100 for a
2 touchdowns or something?
for an anytime touchdown."
Oh,
and then like 53 minutes later, the inactive list comes out and Cole Turner is on it. I was just like, "Please tell me we didn't put in that parlay yet."
Yeah, right.
It's like that would have been a disaster.
But still, I think even if you do on those parlays and they don't play, they also null.
Yeah, they'll
void those out. But they void the whole parlay, I think. Or no, they don't. They just take the one out. Anyway, Nathan said Washington was going to have 4 sacks.
Oh, one.
They only had 3. Trev went with you, and I said no.
One off.
Trev said that Detroit was going to have less than 2 rushing touchdowns, and they had less. I don't think they had any.
They had no rushing touchdowns.
Right. Nathan took the bet, so it's negative on Nathan's side. Trev said that Washington would have 0 field goal attempts. Washington did have 0 field goal attempts. Both you and I went against him on that. Trev said Gibby was going to have 3 touchdowns. All right. Both you and I were like, that's not
happening.
Right, you got me on this technicality, and damn it, I'm so pissed because you even called this technicality out. You know what it is?
No, remind me.
Wentz. I said Wentz was going to have multiple picks and multiple TDs, and you said multiple picks, not multiple turnovers, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, because he did have multiple turnovers.
He did have multiple turnovers. I would not have taken it if he would have had, if you would have said multiple turnovers. Yeah. Did Trev go with you on that one?
Trev went with me, yeah.
Nice. And so I gained on that one. Yep. That's why words matter, folks. Words matter. Words have meaning.
Nathan said the first drive would be a Washington touchdown.
That did not happen.
Only Trev said no on that one. I didn't get involved with that one. Trev said Washington would be a 3-and-out on the first drive. Both you and I went against him, and he was right.
Yeah, lots of 3-and-outs this time. Again, Scott Turner, my no-go. Like, absolutely just did not love the play calling in that first half.
I said Dax Milne would have 9 yards or less on each punt return. He did, I believe, have like a 13 or something. He definitely had a double-digit punt return. So Trev was the only one against that. So Trev won that one.
Yeah, he had an 11-yard average, long of 19. Trev went against that one?
Yep. So Trev
and
was
I
right.
abstained, right?
You abstained. And then here's the last one. Nathan said Washington will have a 50-yard play, and they did not have a 50-yard play. And both Stoner and Trev took that bet. So according to my records, I have Stoner with a big fat even.
Yep, that's what I got.
I have Trev with a +2.
He's coming back. I see that. Yep.
And I have Nathan with a -4. That's what I have here. A -4 for the Nathan. Is that
I
what
got
you got?
-3.
I'll double check, but there might have been one up here that I didn't.
Yeah, I got -3 on that one. Yeah, that Corey's right. I said the first drive in the second half. Let's rewind the tape, double check here.
What? Are
just a
you guys just
little,
making this up?
Just
Yeah,
completely
okay,
making it
this
up there. Yeah, rough outing by me on the dollar. We do enjoy our little fun prop bets. We enjoy bringing you some great content. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We always appreciate the love. And yeah, let's go Vikings right now. We're going to go ahead and break it off. We will be back on Wednesday, 7:30 live.
Yep.
And we'll have some Eagles, content creator in with us to talk about that game and whether or not we feel confident, especially after losing to Detroit.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I think Trev is going to come around. He usually does. And he's like, we're going to win this game. That's right. I'm going to bet $1 for that. He'll probably listen to this and go against it just in case. But
yeah,
I would say he's probably going to say we're going to lose, or he's going to say we're going to lose to the Eagles until we start talking. And he's like, nah, we're going to win.
Yeah, we're winning this game.
We're going to win this game. All right. We appreciate you jumping in the chat here, and we're going to get to the Vikings beating up the Eagles, hopefully.
Yeah, man. Let's go watch it.
All right. So until next time.
What's that?
Be a fan.
Be a fan.